Hello and welcome to Headstrong. My name is Louis Strong and I host this podcast. This is a podcast where I sit down with a number of notable people in the public eye to talk to them about their lives and their careers, to understand what the word headstrong means to them. And to me, it means to believe in yourself, to talk about your vulnerabilities, and reinforce your self-worth. On this episode of Headstrong is the YouTuber Max Fosh. I sat down with Max to have a chat about how he got into the world that he's in now, and also how he comes up with new ideas and constantly generating fresh content for his viewers. We also talked about his anxieties and the lack of structure in a self-employed job like this, so I hope you really enjoy this episode of Headstrong. But first, a quick note from our sponsors, RCK Partners, who specialise in helping UK businesses claim R&D tax relief across the engineering, agricultural and tech space. If you'd like to find out about this valuable source of funding for your business, head over to rck.partners or follow the link in the podcast description below. That's rck.partners. Max, thank you so much for joining me on Headstrong. How's it going?
Thanks very much. Yeah, excited to be here. Excited to chat about my head, which is very, very exciting.
Absolutely. Now, for those who are a subscriber who don't necessarily know who you are, how would you define your job title? Because I'm interested to see what you would say.
Yeah, I think I often get described as a prankster, which I feel like is which I think that has slightly negative connotations. I would say that I am professionally silly. I think would be the best way to describe my job. I am a YouTuber who specializes in making videos that are wacky, a bit weird, normally big stunt based. So I've done various stunts, like I wrote in massive letters, "Welcome to Luton," right next to Gatwick Airport. I ran in the 2020 mayoral elections with the top manifesto point of "Don't vote for me," coming 19th out of 20. I found roadkill and served it to Michelin star chefs. So it's basically a really weird job, but one that it just gives me license to come up with the weirdest ideas and try to execute them.
So if you could reflect on this, say, as a young Max, do you think he would go, that's a pretty cool damn job to be having?
Yeah, I think obviously he would be like, okay, that's a thing now, great. But also I was a really like goody two shoes when I was growing up. And so like I loved the idea of like structure and authority and being told what was right and what was wrong. So I don't think I probably would have been quite intimidated by the idea that I have to go out and do things that are slightly against the grain. So I think the show off part of my childhood very much would have enjoyed what I do now, for sure.
So that's interesting. So what you liked was authority and structure, and that kind of stems from boarding school, which is of course where you where you attended. Reflecting on that as an experience, because I went to boarding school as well. Did you only go secondary school, or were you at boarding school beforehand?
No, luckily I only went in secondary school, because I think hearing a lot of like stories of boys going when they were like 7 years old, that sounds like a really tough thing to do.
That's savage. Yeah. But looking back on then, okay, at secondary school, boarding school, what was that experience like in terms of happiness? Because it's so full on, and you're there and you're bred almost to have a work ethic. But did you get time? I know what it's like as well being at an all-boys school. You get on with people. There's a lot of testosterone flying around. There's always this kind of fight for survival almost. Yeah. What was it like for you?
I think happiness is an odd adjective to describe my time at school. Now, I think it's very easy for one to like leave school and then just like bash on school and be like, God, it was a terrible place. And it was a difficult time. I did struggle with my time at school because of what you just mentioned. It's a boarding school, so you've got 70, 80 boys who are living on top of each other, who are aged from 13 to 18. And it really is a bit of a fight for survival and learning how to get through it. It did teach me a lot. It taught me, right, just get your head down, work hard, and you'll be okay. Like my father was a very, very good cricketer. My father was a very good sportsman at the same school, like 30, 40 years previously. So much so that, like, when I was there, a lot of the older teachers would always say, "Oh, are you Matthew Fosh's son? Are you Matthew Fosh's son?" And so a lot of my and I wasn't that good at cricket myself, but I made myself. I went to a school called Harrow, and there's a cricket match that Harrow play against Eton every year at Lord's, which is like the home of cricket, the cricket version of Wembley. And my father had played in this, my uncle had played in this, my grandfather had played in this, and I was in the C team. And I was thinking, there's no way I'm going to play in this. And I remember I remember calling my mum, I hate this place. This is really difficult. But I thought, no, I'm going to see if I can try and make it into this cricket team to continue this generation, like tradition to play in this match. Yeah. And I don't know why I suddenly put so much pressure on this, but I did. And I remember I then just trained like a madman for I was like 15, and I don't know why, but I thought, right, let's just turn this into a Rocky montage moment, but with a posh boy from boarding school with a cricket ball. Like, it's not quite as evocative and sexy as the boxing montage, but I ended up kind of getting into the first team and playing at Lord's and playing in this match from kind of nowhere. And that taught me a lot about determination and a lot about, like, right, oh great, you genuinely, if you work hard and you have a little bit of self-belief, you can do this. So that difficulty that I had at school bred in me an understanding of work ethic, an understanding of commitment to whatever something is. So yeah, I wouldn't say that I had an incredibly happy time at school, but I had a very formative time at school. And then there's always questions: would I send my son or my daughter to boarding school? I don't know. I think it completely depends on the person, because my sister went to boarding school and she absolutely loved it. She was like, "Oh, I'm around my mates all the time. It's like one massive sleepover. It was fantastic." So I think it's very dependent on the individual.
So do you enjoy the story of the underdog then, in terms of yourself, in terms of enjoying kind of proving people wrong and getting over those hurdles?
A little bit. I think that's a lot of the why I've gone into the job that I do. Don't get me wrong. I've had a big old safety net to try these things. But that's why I love YouTube and stand-up comedy, because it's a total leveler. Like, there's nothing involved there that can give you a leg up. With YouTube, you're competing against every single person who's uploading YouTube videos. The best person, like, if you make good YouTube videos, you will get views, you will get success, quote unquote success. And it's the same with stand-up comedy. There's no oh, my dad knows this person kind of thing. In my experience anyway, if you make someone laugh, you make someone laugh. So yeah.
What was the infrastructure like at school for you if you were having tough days? Because when I was at school, because we're the same age, and if mental health was talked about when I was at school, I would have said that there was still very much the stigma of, you're at an all-boys school, there's a lot of man-ups going around and being told to get on with it, unless it's really bad, in which case, come stay in the sand for a week and have a timeout and then get back out there, old boy.
Yeah, there was a lot of man up. It's fine. But then what I found really interesting was there was a community. There was a structure when I was there of everyone kind of knew that there was going to be you had a bad time in your first few years, but the older boys were like, well, we had to do it, so therefore you had to do it. So it's kind of this perpetual self-feeding vicious cycle. Where, like, yeah, we understand that what we ask you to do, and again, this is not the school. I don't want to kind of badmouth the school, but there was a culture of like boys having to do things for older boys. Like, can you go and get my washing that's downstairs, or go and get my newspaper from over there? And if you said no, you're like, well, I had to do it when I was younger, so you have to do it. And that I found like a really interesting and bizarre cycle that we all found ourselves in, because everyone was basically acknowledging that it wasn't nice to be subjected to kind of these feelings of authority from older boys, but I did it, therefore you have to do it. So that was kind of the most obvious thing that I found. And I realized, okay, it's difficult, but all I can do is to do all my work, do it to a good standard, try and make myself a model student. Because I thought, okay, if I do that, then I'll be looked after. But then I realized I'll be looked after by the teachers, not the boys. And then you get known as the boy who gets on with teachers pet, blah, blah, blah. And so that was another thing that I discovered. So when I first got there, I was like, right, I'm going to hand in my homework and, you know, be the model student. And then I found myself being like, oh, sir, here's my homework when they'd forgotten and everyone was moaning at me. Oh, for God's sake, Max, why'd you like teacher's pet? Why'd you mention? And so you having to play that, like those relationships off against each other, being a model student for a teacher and trying to get your way, like to enjoy your way through the school, but also being on the side of the boys as well. I don't think I balanced that particularly well in my early years.
I think for myself at school, I think it was finding a community of people, a very small group of people. You know, when you're in such a big establishment, when there are kind of 250 boys in a year group, you know, I still think when I left, I reckon there were probably a couple of people that I still hadn't met, and because I'd never been in a class with them, and that's just actually utterly bizarre when you think about it. But you know, you find that safe haven of kind of your close knit friendship group who you can rely on and fall back on and just be yourself with, a kind of a safe community if you are having a tough day to go to. And so mine was in the theatre, and you'd go see everybody, and you'd go hang out in, you know, just chill out, be silly.
I think I was trying to protect myself too much that I was blind to seeing who that group was for me. And what you said, that right there, the theatre group would have been those people for me. And I've only kept in touch with two people since I've left school, and they were both theatre guys. And when I was at school, because I was in the cricket gang, I didn't give those relationships enough time to showcase to me that actually these are the people that I need to be hanging out with, because I was in kind of protection mode. I was like, right, I don't massively get on with the cricket lads, but I'm in this group and it gives me an easy time, so I'm going to stick around with these guys. When in actuality, I would have had much more fun if I'd spent time with the quote unquote weird theatre kids, of which I was very much one of.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, when you finished school, from what my understanding is, you had, you know, not in a dissimilar way yet again, but you kind of had this internship in the city, very much of a following a family kind of, not necessarily exactly the family role, but, you know, you go to private school, you go to the city, and you do this, you do that. And that's the kind of the route that, let's say, 90% of former people that we went to school with do. But did you know straight away that you were like, this isn't really for me, it's not where I want to express myself?
Yeah, absolutely. And it was kind of not bigged up by anyone in my family, or just more the structures which I was kind of inhabiting was all like, okay, you do school and then you go into the city and you make loads of money and it's really great, and everyone's kind of like loving each other. We have dinners and lunches and big drinks after work. And I got an internship, again, totally through nepotism, and I sat there for like a month, and in a broking firm that were selling coal. And genuinely enough, about 2 days, I remember thinking, this is it, right? So we're all aware that this is the thing that we are striving for. Is this it? Can I just check? There's nothing else. There's no other sparkly job that you guys are hiding from me, and I'm just sat with the boring guys. Okay, yeah, this is it. Great. And I hated it. I absolutely hated it. I hated the drinking culture, the like, right, after work, let's go get as pissed as we possibly can do. Just gonna sneeze.
Oh, bless you.
One for you to see the spike of the audio, be like, we'll get rid of that. I did that for a month and thought, right, okay, this isn't really what I want to do. And I had already put myself down to do economics and finance at university when I was doing this internship. And so, like, in my first kind of like week or so, I immediately changed it to English literature at university. I hadn't done English literature for A-level. I just wanted to do something that was artsy, slightly kind of floaty in its academic rigor, which I'm so sorry if you're listening, for the English literature department from Newcastle University. What a department it was, by the way. But I kind of very much jumped on a different train track as soon as I got to university, because I wanted to distance myself as much as possible from the quote unquote traditional route that you find when you go to a boarding school like I went to.
Did you find yourself on a traditional route across Thailand, Vietnam, and Laos in your gap year?
No, I actually didn't. I worked for Woucher for 4 months in High Street, Kensington, which was that was also great, because I was suddenly in an office, in like a traditional working office environment, where there was the sales team who were from all sorts of different places around the world. And I was just the admin guy. Like, I was just literally just putting things into a computer for 4 months. And I then went to South Africa for 6 months, and I lived. And I did something really odd. I joined something that was set up by an old South African Marine, and he had set up this camp that was essentially a boot camp for basically troubled kids. And initially, I'm sure she won't mind me telling you this, but initially it was for my sister to go to, because when she was like 16, she was like a bit of a runaway, reprobate. And my mum and dad were like, right, we need to send my sister to this place. She needs to get kind of sorted out, quote unquote. And she saw the word like boot camp, and she saw absolutely no way. So I very much kind of said a couple of years down the line, about, oh, that sounds interesting. Why don't I'll do that? I was, as I said, I was a total goody two shoes, but I went because I was just quite interested. And yeah, it was classic. Wake up at 6 a.m., shave your head, exercise every morning, chores kind of thing. And it was a really interesting, and they taught you how to push yourself physically and mentally. So it wasn't quite the getting pissed at a full moon party in Thailand, but it was, I came back a really, really physically fit individual, having done all sorts of mad things.
Sorry to interrupt the podcast, but a quick note from our series sponsor, RCK Partners. If you're looking to take advantage of R&D tax credits to boost your business's cash flow, RCK Partners can help you. Simply head over to rck.partners or follow the link in the podcast description. That's rck.partners. Now, back to the podcast. Great, it's really interesting to hear about it, because then we fast forward to your time at Newcastle University, and then you started to dip your toe into the world that you find yourself pretty much in now, of kind of presenting and standing up in front of people and being a personality in front of people. What gave you that thirst or that idea, apart from the rejection from the university radio show? Was that what you wanted to do, or were you just like, I'm going to give that a go, and then you got rejected, and then you were like, screw it, I'm going to do it anyway?
I just wanted, I was just trying everything. Got to university, and it was just so refreshing to meet people who weren't from the public school background. Like you can either decide when you get to your halls of residence to stick around in the group of people who you all know vaguely,
your clique,
mutual friends with, your clique. And I very much I made a conscious decision that I didn't want to do that. And so I joined all the societies under the sun. Like, I joined the Theatre Society, I joined the radio station, I joined something called the 20-Minute Society, which is when they would send you a text, and in 20 minutes you had to be somewhere. It was really weird. And so I started meeting people at the Theatre Society and did a few plays. And then one of the girls in the plays was like, "Oh, I do a radio show. Do you want to come along and be my guest on the radio shows?" I was like, "Yeah, that sounds great. University radio. God, that sounds really, really professional." And I got in, and I remember sitting down with the headphones on, absolutely terrified. And after like 2 links or like 20 minutes on the air, I was like, "How many people are listening?" And she turned around the listening counter, and there were like 3. And I knew that one of those was my mum. So that was the first. I was like, "Wow, okay, that's really interesting. Okay, this is cool." So I did manage to get my own slot on the radio station, but it was on the Television Society that I didn't. They said, "No, we've got enough presenters," and so that's when I did my own thing. But I was just, my first kind of 2 years, I was just like, right, oh, that's cool. I enjoy doing that. Oh, that's radio. I can talk uninterrupted for 2 hours. That sounds fantastic. And basically, it was just an opportunity for me to waffle and nobody to get in the way. So I was just experiencing and trying loads of different things. And I'm so grateful that I did that, because I would never have found what I was doing now if I hadn't have gone into the radio station. And so when I speak to people who are going to university for the first time, I say, just join as many societies as you can. Just join societies, because you will meet new people that will form relationships that are lasting, and you will experience things that you never thought you could. And university has so many great opportunities to do things that you can't miss them.
It takes a lot of courage to say that to yourself, where you go, I'm actually going to step away and break the norm of what I probably should be doing. Did you feel like you were kind of being courageous? You know what I mean? Like, you probably didn't think at the time, but you're like, do you know what? I actually need to stand up and do this for myself, almost.
No, I think I think it was less courageous than that. I've been so ingrained I've been so institutionalized in the boarding school way that I was just excited to do literally anything else. And so, yeah, I didn't look at it as oh, this is really scary. I looked at it as like, this is really bloody exciting. God,
if anything, the opportunity rather than stepping away.
Absolutely. Sure. And I just thought, and it was people who they would take the piss out of my voice, my accent, but I was like, great, go ahead, please do. And my name was Fosh and rhymed with posh, and so I had to endure a little bit of ribbing for being posh. But I genuinely, I know it's going to sound so detached from a lot of the audience who didn't grow up in this environment, but to be taken a piss out of because you're posh was something that was so novel and exciting for me anyway, that I quite enjoyed it. I quite enjoyed just being like, having all the questions like, oh, so you really did that at school? You really wore a uniform? I was like, yeah, what we wore. So that was quite fun. I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, absolutely. But despite that, you talk about institutionalization and going on your gap year, and you go doing this kind of boot camp, which ultimately leads me to think of structure and routine, which is probably something that you subconsciously now crave. How does that work then as someone who's self-employed?
It's so difficult. It's so difficult. And you're right. Like, I think the reason I enjoyed that boot camp so much is because it was just boarding school, but just with more running. And like, I got to university and I think I probably did crave that structure, which is again why I joined societies. I like to know, right, you need to be at rehearsal for the play that we're doing at 6 p.m. every evening. You've got your radio show at 11 a.m. So I was probably subconsciously clinging onto those structures. And even now, it's something that, I do sometimes think, oh, just go on. Like, I could easily just pack it all in and get a 9 to 5, because it would be very nice. The good thing is that I'm not a morning person. So the idea of having to wake up at 7:30 and going to class, I do not miss. So I can set myself my own time to wake up. But I've got employees. I've got people who work with me on the channel and on things that I do, and so I need to make sure that I'm pulling my weight, and I'm being there for them and making sure that I'm pulling through in that regard. So I always set meetings early in the morning, because I know, okay, it forces me to get up, it forces me, right, you've got a structure, and I do I very much give myself a 10 till 6 work day, because otherwise, you're right, you just kind of flow around. It's like, oh, I'll do that tomorrow. That's something in the future.
How do you feel about then, as someone who's self-employed and as a creator, and you have to always be kind of almost switched on in terms of, because you don't know when the next paycheck might come necessarily. So how do you kind of like almost live your life to an extent where you still have to set yourself boundaries, you still need to be able to switch off, but at the same time, you still need to be aware in case, well, hang on a minute, imagine if I had my camera now and I don't, damn it.
Yeah, I know it's the perennial issue, and I actually don't know I haven't figured it out. And I think this is the biggest issue that content creators and people who work on the internet find, because it's a hamster wheel. It never ends, and you're only as good as your last video, and you get to be known as, I only ever reference that if someone sees on the street that, you're that guy that did blank. And if that thing was like 2 years ago, I start to panic, because I think, wow, okay, so I've been working for the last 2 years, and this individual, their first reference point for me is that thing I did 2 years ago. So, and it's a really unhealthy thing to do. Like my closest friends and family are imploring me get like a Nokia 3310 that only does calls and texts, because then I can leave my work phone, which has got all my social media stuff on it, at home, and just focus on just being present there and then. And I think that's a genuine reason why like the life cycle of a creator is like 5 or 6 years, because you cannot constantly be in this world where, okay, what's next? And you get these enormous highs when you have a video that's going really, really viral, that is what you've worked on, but it comes down just as quickly. And then the question is, great, well, what's next? So I don't think I've discovered the answer to that question. The first thing I did when I got my first paycheck from YouTube was get therapy, because I knew that this is something I need to look after myself in the long term. And I am the product here. So like you get your car serviced, I know that I need to constantly, regularly check in. But then I found that the conversation was just the same over and over again with my therapist. It's all to do with very much like feelings of self-worth and attaching yourself to numbers, and it's your descriptor and your exactly what people, you're more than just the sum of your parts, basically. So yeah.
No, but I know exactly what you mean. It's almost like you know the answers when you go now, but you're like, you want somebody else to tell you.
Sorry, can you repeat that once more?
So it's almost, it's like you almost know the answers when you go to see the therapist now, but it's like, but you want somebody else to reassure you, because it's comforting as a person. You want to feel and hear somebody else telling you, almost like it's, it's going to be okay.
Yeah.
But it's like, but it's not.
It's really funny because I joke with this is getting very therapy-y, but I joke with my therapist that he will say something. He will ask a question that he knows gets me every single time. And I'll like, when he asks a question, I'll say, "Oh, for God's sake, no, don't ask me that question. You do this every single week, and you're doing it purely because you want to see me cry. And stop doing that, please." But it's funny because I know the answer to the question, and it's the same thing over and over again. But I still, you can like learn what you need to learn on paper, but actioning it is a different thing altogether.
So we talk about coping then in terms of therapy like that. But what about on days when, let's say, you do get up late and you're feeling a little bit lazy and you don't achieve much, and then you start to beat yourself up about it? How do you kind of keep your mentality and check yourself? Do you do anything like going for a run or using breathing exercises or headspace?
No, I don't, and I need to get better at that. I just go into this self-perpetual like cycle of just kind of scrolling and on things, and there is one thing that I do, which is read. I really enjoy I watched that documentary on Netflix that all scared us about kind of social media usage. And the main thing I took away with that is don't put your phone in your room. And so for like a long period of time, I have kept my phone out of my room, and I have a book and I'll read before I go to bed. And that was great. Like when I've got a book that I'm really into, I absolutely love that. But I'm not that good at being able to identify. I'm good at being able to identify when I'm having a crap day and it's all been slightly self-inflicted. But I'm not very good at being able to acknowledge it so much that I do something about it. I kind of wallow. And it's not until that I've got something, it's not until I've got like a meeting or something that I've got to go to, do I get kicked out of. So maybe I'll have like dinner plans in the evening, and then I can like, great, okay, I'm out of the slump. So I need to get better. I need to be strong enough to be able to say, right, go for a run now, Max. Like that helps. Do some breathing exercises, exactly.
Yeah, for sure. Now let's take it on to the kind of the more creative side of it. In terms of generating ideas for content. You say you've got a team, so that's great to have like the sounding board of it. And I'm sure that if somebody comes up with ideas, it's great to come to you and vice versa. Do you find it's one of those things where you're just kind of could be walking down the street and suddenly go epiphany and you've got this idea and then go brainstorm it? Or do you actively sit down and try and work something out?
We do, I think so. My colleague Aziz and I used to be like, I'll just walk around the road and be like, wow, yeah, great, that's fantastic, that's a good idea. But the more that I've done YouTube and the bigger that the videos have gotten and the more people have watched them, I've started to understand exactly how you can manufacture a video idea. And it does come with seeing something initially. So we'll take the roadkill video, for instance. we came up with that idea when we were driving back from filming somewhere in Bristol, and we saw some roadkill on the side of the road, and we thought, okay, roadkill, that's interesting. What can we do with roadkill? We can go collecting roadkill, and we go through this process where we think about contradictions. It's all about contradictions in when it comes to me. So it's like, right, roadkill, that's something that everyone understands. What is the weirdest thing, or what can we do with roadkill that contradicts the idea of roadkill? Making it into something really nice, making it into a delicious meal. Okay, that works. Who are we going to give that delicious meal to? Where's the emotional hook there? Okay, what about our friends, our family? We don't tell them it's roadkill. What about Michelin star chefs? Great. And so it then slowly takes on a form of its own. So I think that it is a really conscious decision. It's not like I suddenly go, oh, I'm going to go give roadkill to Michelin star chefs. Also, a lot of the time, it's just looking at things that have been done before and adding my own spin on it. So I had a video that people that did very well recently, which was, I wrote "Welcome to Luton" right next to Gatwick Airport, and that went so viral, and people really enjoyed that. But that wasn't a new idea. There was a guy who's written "Welcome to Cleveland" in Milwaukee, and it's been up there for like 30, 40 years. And I read that article in the paper. It popped up for some reason. I thought, let's just do our own version. So I think often with YouTube and in the creative world, there is this pressure that you need to sit down and come up with an idea that's going to change the world. Like, no one has ever heard of this before, which is not the case. You just need to do something with your angle just a little bit better, or just with a little bit different. And it's something like good artists copy, great artists steal. And I really do. And again, inspiration is copying with style, or something like that. And I really like those ideas, because it's true, you don't need to reinvent the wheel every time you come up with a new idea. You just need to take the essence of what people enjoy, the essence of the story, and add your own spin on it. So it is a very conscious action coming up with video ideas.
So what happens with those ideas then that are so close to being there but don't quite make it? You know, the ones that are so close to working and you're going, there is something there. Do you just kind of hang it almost on a shelf and go, I'm just going to keep looking at it every now and then and see what happens?
Yeah, like I've got a list of ideas that I'm just not quite sure how they're going to work. Like there's one where I want to technically hire my friend who hates YouTube. So hiring my YouTube company. So for example, there's a great mate of mine who just like always takes the piss about what I do. And I thought it would be really funny if we made him a member of the company, or an employee of the company, without him knowing. So we got him to do little jobs for me. Like, oh, can you go collect this? Can you go collect that? And then I get in a position where I pay him, but he doesn't realize he's being paid. And it's a fun idea. And then like revealing to him that the thing that he hates is he's taking the piss out of all along. He's actually been employed by. But it's just not quite there. There's no emotional hook there. The stakes aren't really there. So I don't think that one will go anywhere, because I don't think it's a great idea. But I'll keep going back to it. Maybe it's not with my friend. Maybe it's with someone who, like Lawrence Fox, who I ran against in the London mayoral election, who didn't seem to like me all that much. Maybe it's that. So yeah, there's loads of video ideas that really funny titles, but we're never going to get made. So a friend of mine, Zach, who's another YouTuber, told me the idea of singing Crimea River in the Crimean River. Really funny idea. Great idea, but like you can't do it because of the annexing of Crimea. So it's quite tricky having a video title that is going to be really good. So at the moment, I'm working on a video where I want to play the triangle with the Royal Philharmonic Orchestra, because I thought if I could get there in a tux with a little triangle with a full orchestra and just ding it once throughout in a concert, that would be a really fun video. So
put it on the CV.
Yeah, put it on the CV. Just a professional musician, absolutely.
Experience.
And also, yeah.
I love that. Now you are, though, in Edinburgh doing stand-up. So obviously this is completely kind of the opposite of kind of video content in terms of being allowed to edit it. You've got this live audience in front of you now. What's that experience been like?
Great. It's so fab. I mean, I've been doing stand-up for maybe like 2 or 3 years now. So it's something that I've got more and more used to. And Rob Beckett, the comedian, has a really good point about stand-up, which is it takes ages for you to become a competent stand-up comedian. But he said it's just like any other job. So let's say you started a 9 to 5 in an office on the Monday morning, you don't really know what you're doing. But at the end of the first week on Friday, you know the structures, you know what you're doing, you know what your job role is. But you've been there for 9 to 5 every day for 5 days. And so you've had time in the office. Stand-up comedy is no different, but you're just doing it 5 minutes at a time. So it takes ages for you to become confident on stage and competent in the job and know what you're doing. And I've been lucky that I've toured this show, so I've spent the hours on stage. I've spent hundreds of hours now on stage, which has really helped me. And having that instant feedback, there's no hiding on a stage. Like if you tell a joke and it's not funny, the audience will not laugh. It is genuinely that simple. Whereas on YouTube, you just see comments and likes and view counters, which is very hard to quantify. So doing a show to 50 people can a lot of the times be so much more rewarding than doing a big video that quote unquote goes viral, which is a really, really interesting dynamic, as the way that we perceive big numbers, because we cannot quantify huge numbers.
Well, it's that immediate release of kind of emotion when you get that applause, you get that laugh for a joke, and you're like going, it's an immediate response as opposed to seeing it on a screen. It's slightly different, isn't it? But what about kind of, I imagine over 2 or 3 years, your nerves have got better, but do you still kind of get that buzz before going up there?
Yeah, absolutely. Still really nervous before I go on. And it's that first 5 minutes, if you can just kind of settle down and get into this, and the audience are really receptive. Oh, it's the best. It's the absolute best. If you're on stage and you can tell the audience are quite hesitant and quiet, and you need to work that little bit harder, it can be a real challenge. But then you need to be very conscious as to not to go searching for it. So not to try, and you need to trust the material. And there's a teaching that I've learned about. It's called the Live at the Apollo. You're having your Live at the Apollo gig, which is where even if the gig is going terribly, you have got to pretend like this is the best gig you've ever had, because at Live at the Apollo, it's going on telly, and they can add laugh tracks, and they can make you look good, and they can make the audience look like they're absolutely loving life. And so if you do that on stage, then the audience feel like they're like, okay, well, this guy seems like he knows what he's doing. He seems totally comfortable. He might not be getting absolutely no laughs, but that's okay. He looks like he's having a good time. So yeah, there are things I've had to learn slowly, and I'm still working on it. I'm still not the best at it.
So in terms of the future, then you're obviously going to always still continue to create content online, and hopefully continue another show potentially in terms of the stand-up world. Is there anything else that's on the horizon?
Yeah, I think I just want to, one thing that I've learned with YouTube and with stand-up is just telling stories. I think the mediums will change. People are talking now like, oh, TikTok's coming, or YouTube Shorts are coming, and everyone's attention span is shortening, and long-form content isn't there for people anymore. And I would agree with that to a certain extent, but ultimately the only thing that matters, the only thing that people really care about is story. Can you convey something that is funny or educational or entertaining? And it's just that the time frames in which you have to do that are shortening and shortening and shortening. So what I'm trying to do with YouTube and what I'm trying to do with stand-up is just get better at telling a story all the time. And I think that's a skill that's quite valuable going forward. So I don't know where I'm going to be and what I'm going to be doing in 5-10 years. Maybe I'll still be on YouTube. Maybe I'll be doing TV. Maybe I'll be completely left this entire entertainment industry altogether. But hopefully I would have kept the value in being able to tell a good story. So that's the one thing I'm clinging on to.
So my final question that I ask every guest is, what does the word headstrong mean to you?
Headstrong. Gosh, I really don't know. And I think often I bet the answer you get quite a lot is having the ability to kind of understand yourself and being able to get through difficult patches, difficult periods of your life. But I think for me, headstrong is just this. It's an unwavering confidence, I think, in what you do, and that's not necessarily in your job, but in your relationships as well, and in the confidence in being able to know that sometimes like romantic relationships might rise and it might fall, platonic relationships might rise, might fall, but confident in that you yourself are doing the right thing, and always trying and striving to be a person that you would like to meet. So yeah, I think that's what Headstrong is trying to having confidence in yourself and what you do, and yeah, having the ability to, the fortitude to actually, this is what it is. My dad says in life, there's always two things: humility and fortitude. Humility when things are going really well, and having the foresight to be like, I understand that things are going really well right now, and they might not in the future. And fortitude when they're not, and pushing through. So for me, it's those two words, for humility and fortitude.
Fantastic, Max. Thank you so much for joining me on the show. I wish you the very best of luck for the rest of the Fringe. I hope it goes super well, and best of luck in the future.
You too, buddy. Speak to you in a bit.
And that's the end of this episode with Max Fosh. A huge thank you to Max for being so open and honest, and being generous with his time to chat on Headstrong Season 8. If you've enjoyed the podcast, please do rate it and subscribe. We have loads of episodes in the back catalogue, and I would really appreciate it if you went to check them out. I will see you next week for another episode of Headstrong.